Swamiji, I constantly find myself drawn to sense pleasures. They seem so powerful and difficult to resist. How can I control my senses and free my mind? The mind is like a lamp. The senses are like the wind. If the wind blows, the flame of the lamp is disturbed. In the same way, when the senses are out of control, the mind cannot remain steady. Like a wild horse, the senses drag the mind towards the objects of desire. Mind cannot have peace unless the senses are controlled. You will have to curb the senses first. Then the mind will become calm. If you withdraw the senses from their respective objects, the mind will be absorbed in the self. But the mind seems so restless. I try to focus on higher things, but it keeps pulling me back towards desires. Why it is so difficult to control? Just as the monkey jumps from one branch to another, the mind leaps from one object to another. Why? Because of desires. The mind becomes restless and uncontrollable when the senses are restrained. It is like a chariot yoked to wild horses. When the senses are uncontrolled, they drag the mind in all directions. There is a story of a man who tried to meditate in a forest. But every time he closed his eyes, his mind would run after his senses, towards food, towards sound, towards touch. He was frustrated and could not find peace. Then a sage taught him to withdraw his senses first. He was told to practice self-restraint to control his diet, speech, and actions. Gradually, he found his mind settling. Once the senses were brought under control, the mind could focus. I see now. So, do I need to give up all my desires? Desire is the root cause of all mystery. You cannot give up your desire, but reduce your desires. The fewer the desires, the greater the happiness. A man who reduces his desires becomes powerful and content. But if the desires are allowed to grow unchecked, the mind becomes agitated. A man with many desires is like a person in the middle of a stormy sea, tossed and turned by the waves. To still the waves, you first stop creating them by controlling desires. As desires multiply, restlessness increases. When desires vanish, the mind becomes calm and serene. But Swamiji, how can I truly reduce desires? Is there a practice that can help me remove these attachments to sense objects? You can control the mind through meditation. If you practice regular meditation, the mind gradually becomes steady. When the mind is controlled, the senses become calm. Through meditation, the outgoing tendencies of the mind are checked. The mind, which is distracted by desires, is gradually calmed. There is a story about a king who wanted to give up his kingdom and meditate in the forest. But he was too attached to his wealth, power, and luxuries. So he could not concentrate during his meditation. His mind wandered back to the palace. A saint taught him, you can renounce the palace while still living in it by reducing your desires. The king learned to meditate even while sitting on the throne by controlling his desires. When the desires are reduced and when the senses are controlled, the mind becomes calm and concentrated. Only then you will realize the self.